Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. Today I want to take a look at a chronometer certification that came when this watch left the factory at Zenith in 1999 and discuss a bit different aspects of those chronometer-grade watches. What happens after you have them serviced independently or back at the manufacturer? What happens after you've worn them for a few years? What happens after you even case the watch? And what is in the chronometer certification? So these days you can get these often as a card, and you just put it on your phone and you can see online the result of the chronometer results or the METAS result, which is even higher type of grade of battery of tests that Tudor has just entered, but is typically known to be followed by Omega. And of course, as you know, every Rolex goes through the chronometer testing, and then Rolex readjusts them even tighter to tolerance of -2 +2 seconds per day. And they call that the superlative chronometer. And all the Rolex that I've had have really been between -2 +2. You will always hear someone on the internet complain that his Rolex is not accurate, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what he's done or what the AD has done or the distributor has done with the watch. They might have had an impact, a shock that has caused some problem with the watch, but usually those watches are very resilient. And I just bought a Rolex that's over 10 years old, and it still runs almost on zero in all the positions. So I think I have a very interesting watch to look at, because I've got the full set for my Zenith Chronomaster T, which is it also has a chronograph and a full calendar, so that will be very demanding on the amplitude of the movement. So we'll see a bit. Maybe we can run the chronograph while we are testing to see if that is taxing the amplitude of the balance. So there are two versions of this watch. Be careful. Some are non-chronometer. This is chronometer. And back then, what you would receive is this paper. So typically, what we know is that the chronometer certification is -4 seconds, +6 seconds per day in 5 different positions. Again, you can get watches that are tested in 6 positions as well. Higher grade of testing. This is the official chronometer certification. And just so we understand each other, if you're a bit new to watches, chronometer is just about the accuracy of the timekeeping of the watch. This is a chronograph. Chronograph is a function of a watch. A chronograph can be a chronometer, but not necessarily. And a chronometer can be just a time-only watch, can have all sorts of complications. But chronometer mean very different things, nothing to do with each other, but they can be found on the same watch. There you go. So this one, make sure it's fully wound. It was on a winder, so it is also important, of course, when you test. And again, you can test at the full wind. And then you can often you'll see Omega, I think, will be retesting at the 1/3 of the power reserve. So you have to calculate, leave the watch down for until you reach that point, and then redo the testing. But here we'll do it pretty much fully wound. So this is the beautiful little paper that you get. So one thing I think it's not clear on it, that it's testing the movement cased or not. What it says, it's a test for wristwatches, so kind of ambiguous. I always understood that it was just the movement before being cased, but here kind of indicates that it's being cased. Does it make a big difference? Some say it would. I would imagine it's not that drastic. I don't really care that much, but yeah, put that in the comment if you know if the COSC is just the movement or is if it's cased up. I think it's just the movement normally. So this one is a test for wristwatches with a sprung balance and oscillator type 1. So you get a reference for your certificate. You can just order one more duplicate and that's it. The reference of the movement for this manufacturer, Zenith in this case, categories, what it does, the size of the movement. What we really want, the heart of the testing is this. So mainly 3 tests in the vertical positions, 1 test with the face up, 1 test with the face down. And again, we can discuss why it shows that. How often is your watch face down compared to other positions? And then another test at the different temperatures with the face up. The face up, which usually is the one where the watch is going to run the fastest. You will notice pretty much on every watch is the case, just because of the position of the balance. And lastly, another test similar to the first one with the 6 o'clock at the top. So it means like this. So it's pretty much when you're walking, which, well, actually no. Well, I think when you're walking, you're more like the 9 is up. I like to test personally flat and with a 9 up, because that's when you walk, you're like this, and when you're sitting down at the desk, you're mostly kind of like this, right? So I like to do an average of those two to get an idea of the quality. But there you go. They will test the 6 up, the 3 o'clock up, and the 9 o'clock up. And so you get the results on day 1, day 2, then day 3 they test this. And you get the variations between the 2 days. The date of the test. Here it's all the variations. The date, it's done in Lachaud de Fond and a signature of the director. And then here it explains why they do those testing. It's just to promote chronometer-grade Swiss movements in the world, some regulations, large, smaller watches, and yeah, the variations that are accepted. The main one we want to care about is this, and I guess the variation between the position as well. So there you go. This watch, when it left Zenith, at least you would expect it to be very accurate. And yeah, you'll hear often people say, yes, Seiko is not accurate because they don't regulate, but any Seiko could be regulated. I think it's there's a bit more. I think not all movements can be regulated as well as others. They're not all born the same. Not all can take the same regulation, and the free-sprung movements that we often see now can take and keep better regulation than a movement like this, where the balance is not free-sprung. But yeah, I don't believe in this common saying that yeah, you can regulate any watch, any Seiko to be a chronometer. You can probably regulate them better than the factory, but the variations are likely to be quite high if the movement comes to you already with high variations. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that some watches run fast, but they run constantly fast, and no matter what the position, it runs more or less, say, plus 10 seconds. But some watches from one day will go plus 10 and the next day minus 30 seconds. Those are pretty lost cases. But if you're a watchmaker, or if you toyed with movement regulation, please share your expertise here. It's just a bit more for me, for you to see a bit what's going to happen when I put this on the Timegrapher. So I had this watch serviced once about 3 years ago. And as I said, it's a complicated watch. and we have to see a bit, like the next day, for example, after, let's say if you're passing to a new month, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 indications around midnight, between here and here, let's say, around the 2-3 hour time, that 4 indications that will change. That is very taxing for the movement, and that's why JLC, Jaeger-LeCoultre, created the duometre watch to have one mainspring to power all those indications, and one to power the regulation of the watch. Just for the extra little story. So anyway, I have my Timegrapher, and we're gonna see face up after having had a service and not being exactly regulated. Now, what I hate about these is that it's gonna push on the pushers of the chronograph, so it's not a very ideal watch to do this, but I'll be very careful applying pressure. Let's stop the sound. So face up is usually when the watch is going to run the fastest. And as you can see, the amplitude of this El Primero is ridiculously high. 354 is the highest I've ever seen. Typically Rolex will be around 300 face up and then drop to 250 in the vertical positions. And you see that pretty much across all watches, a drop of 40 to 50 degree of amplitude. If you want to know more about amplitude, you can probably see other videos and websites about it. It's really about the health of the movement. The first thing we look on this is the good health of the movement. So high amplitude, 300 is great, but down to 240, 250 is fine. In the vertical position, as I said, it will be more around there. 345 is exceptional. I've never seen that in any other movement. But this is a high beat, so it's a bit different than everybody else. So in the parameters, I've put 52 degree. You have to check. It doesn't make a huge difference in the result, but it can make some difference. The more the lift angle is different. So here I've put 52 lift angle. Many Seikos will be 57 or something like that, or 53. It makes a bit of a difference. For now, let's just stick to 52 as it's more or less the base where we start from. And then the beat error again indicates the health of the movement. The other thing that shows the health of the movement is how clean the line is. Some bad movements, you will see a lot of little dots all the way around. And also when you change position, you will see a myriad of dots, but on a Rolex, it will be a lot cleaner. It will stabilize much quicker into a new position. All right, now that the watch has settled a little bit, you see we are +1, high amplitude, low beat error, and the originally the face up horizontally was +1, +1, -1, but like the first day +1, so we are exactly at the same reading. Really, really good. All right, so let's move the position, and let's put the what do we have? They don't have actually the 12 up, so this position here is not a chronometer position, right? So let's turn it around, and now we have the 3 up, so vertical 3 o'clock up, which should be close to what we just had. So chronometer certification showed almost +1. Let's stop and restart. And you see, so the amplitude is a bit lower, so it's about 50 degrees lower, which is totally fine, and this is still a very high amplitude. Beat error hasn't really changed, and we are already at +2, so it's still extremely good. Let's turn once more, and we put now the 6 o'clock up. You see very little snow, as I like to call it, on the display as I change the position. And let's see how quickly the watch is going to settle to its next pace. +7, +7. There you go, +1 already. at the third reading after moving the position. And here with the 6 up, it was showing a +2. So, you know, the service which I did here in Hong Kong at a classic watch repair, I wasn't expecting to get back something chronometer spec. And I don't think Michael Young, who did the service, I've asked him this question, and he would just basically do in 2 positions, right? I don't think he goes to all 5 positions. And there you go, still 0 + 1. It is really exceptionally good. Now we're going to put the 9 o'clock, the 9 up. Again, the watch settles really quickly. And let's see where it's going to go. So on the chronometer certification, the 9 typically goes faster. Let's see if it's the case here. Now the beat error has gone to 0. The amplitude is still extremely high, and the watch is running 0. I mean, it attests to the quality of the El Primero movement and the quality of the watches that were produced back at the late 90s. As I told you, I love the watches from the late 90s. Early 2000s, I think the brands were really working on quality, great designs. This watch is beautiful indeed, and I think better than anything they make today. I'm sure they're going to reissue it with a bit of a more modern case eventually. So there you go, -1. Beat error has gone to 0. And that's pretty much the position when you're walking with the watch. So you could not ask for a better result. And the last one, which I think is really bizarre, it's the face down here, face down. I don't know whoever has, until you you really croak, face down, and it could go faster. But let's do it anyway, since we want to be thorough on this test. All right, now the watch is face down, which is a very uncommon one, and you know, not necessarily maybe where a manufacturer is going to test the watch, but there you go. Totally flatlining and -1. Amplitude is back to 304, 309, and let's keep it running a little bit. So kudos to Classic Watch Repair. You know, they don't sponsor me to say this here today, but wow. And kudos to Zenith manufacturing quality. I mean, this watch is a 24-year-old, 23, 24-year-old, has had 1 service in its life probably, and runs, I think, even better than the what we saw here. So, wow, really an impressive result. And these Timegraphers don't cost a lot, so you guys get one if you have a big collection and you want to know how healthy your watches are. I want to be sure. I love to be sure where I am. 2 things I like. I like accuracy. A watch that's completely off from one day to the next, really I just can't stand, and I want to get rid of it immediately. And many new Seikos with a long power reserve have that problem. It's because you're operating them at different levels of the power reserve, and it's just not made to keep the same amplitude at a low power reserve. And they're just all over the place. Sometimes they're very good, sometimes they're not. If it's really off all the time, it just annoys me and I can't keep the watch. That's one thing. But I also like to know the health of my movement. So if you have a big collection, don't want to stress out about whether you need to service the watch. Look at here, still +1, +2, so steady. Then get one of these Timegraphers. They cost very little. The brand here is a Weishi, very common one. And then you can have a peace of mind and know when the thing gets a bit cloudy like this. You see, I just moved the watch. When it gets a bit cloudy, it takes a lot of time to get back to a clean line. Maybe you never get a clean line. Then you know it's time to have the watch serviced. It's better than guessing, right? Also, if you're coming to the end of the warranty period and the watch is still running perfectly, do you really want to take the risk of having it opened maybe scratched even by the watchmaker, maybe come back less accurate, which is something we've seen before. If it's just super accurate, super clean like this, leave it alone. I've serviced this one 3 years ago, haven't worn it all that much, but just leave it alone. If it looks like this, let it go past the warranty and have it serviced whenever you need to do it. Okay, so that's also why it's very useful to have this, so you know if you need to service under warranty or not. I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover. The last thing I want to do is run the chronograph. If I manage, it's not easy on this machine. Okay, let's try to run the chronograph. I really don't like this because this is not made to go between the pushers. Let's push it back in. As you can see, I like to protect my watches on this side and see if the amplitude drops when the chronograph is running. Remember, we had a very strong amplitude, 346, and now that the chronograph is running, it dropped about the same as how much it drops when you put it in a vertical position, so about 50 degree. The BTRO is still very good, and the timekeeping seems to have gone slower all of a sudden, a little bit, but now it's coming back. So there you go, some influence on the amplitude, and if that makes you nervous, you can pay maybe second-hand $25,000 to get the Ultra-Diomètre, which solves this problem by having 1 minute spring for the complications, 1 minute spring for the timekeeping. That's why they created that. And let's try one more time with the chronograph running on this position, which is not a chronometer position, by the way. 12 on top, as we've seen, is not a chronometer position, so you could hide deviations there, but look, Zenith doesn't hide. It's still very clean. Amplitude is still very good. Bit error at 0, -2. I think that concludes my test of this watch. I hope this was informative. And if you want me to test other models from my collection, let me know if you think that was fun. And yeah, if you think I'm a bit mistaken, misguided about some of the things I've said or the way I conducted my tests, please do let me know. We are all here to learn, and we'd love to learn something from you as well. Bye bye, guys.